I report to my stakeholders on a weekly basis. Every single week, it keeps me checking in on these key metrics. It keeps all my heads of department checking in on these key metrics, and it keeps everyone very focused on what's important. I'm Melissa Snowbird, the CEO and founder of Remedy Health.
Perfect. And what do you do at Remedy Health?
We use 3D printing technology to personalize the health and wellness market. And we currently use that in two different major activations in preventative and curative health in our brands, Nourished and Scripted.
Perfect. And how did you find the need for this business?
I started doing 3D printing of food in 2015, which was based on my frustrations of making products in mainstream manufacturing facilities, the limitations, the huge minimum order quantities, and the extremely long MPD cycles. So I thought, how can we solve that? How can we make it so that consumers can get what they want? You can't merchandise a shelf with enough options to please everyone, but what if we had a device that would allow people to create their own product in a matter of minutes? And so that's kind of how I started my 3D printing journey. I had never done 3D printing before. I bought 3D printers off the internet, took them apart, put them back together, learned G coding. And then after I launched my first 3D food business, which did very well, I realized that it wasn't really having the impact I wanted, and that there was this really, really obvious industry and sector that desperately needed personalization, which was health, and wasn't getting it in any meaningful way. And this kind of idea like that my clothing is more personalized than my medicine and my nutrition is insane, actually. The fact that my father and I take the same dosage of medication is weird, right? And also that we think that a standard multivitamin, a one size fits all approach is even possible is kind of funny. And I think as we look back in a few years' time, we will think that that was really strange that we did that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's obviously quite a broad range of expertise needed for this. So everything from obviously the tech side with 3D printing, the health side, and then the FMCG side with the end product. So when starting this business, how did you ensure you had all the expertise either for yourself or around you that the business needed to get going?
Well, I had been in FMCG for about 7 years before I started my 3D printing journey. And so I felt like I had a decent amount of understanding of that. And I was an avid user of vitamins and supplements my whole life, but certainly not like clinically trained. And so when I was starting the Remedy Health business, I actually got my associate's diploma in clinical nutrition and sports nutrition in order to support my existing knowledge, make sure that I was fully aware of everything, but also that I could give good advice around the product and the MPD that we did from the formulation side. The 3D printing side, I created my own 3D printer in 2015 and 16, but certainly was not anywhere near as complex as the printers we use now. And so I hired my CTO, I think I hired Martin about 5 years ago, and he's come on board. He's been my co-developer and co-inventor on all of my technology from a hardware standpoint. And yeah, when we set up Remedy, I made him a shareholder. He's now on the board, and he's a major founding person in the business. And I wouldn't be able to do anything that we do now without Martin.
Perfect. And obviously there's a real need for investment with this business, obviously quite a cost intensive business to set up. So were there challenges around there being so many different aspects to this product when talking and approaching the investors?
Yeah, I think I have never raised money from the venture capital world in my previous companies. So it was a real learning curve for me when we went to our seed round and approached that type of market. I think, when you go in front of people, when you're not revenue generating yet, you're basically asking them to give you money on the basis of an idea. Like, I have an idea, and they have to really assess the risk and whether they think you'll be capable of actually achieving what you set out to achieve. There's a lot of beautiful ideas. Actually executing those ideas and bringing concepts to market is a very different thing. And I think that was really the trickiest part, the seed round. So I was asking people, we raised 2.5 million in my seed round, which was the highest female founder seed round in UK history. And that's kind of sad in its own right, because it's not that big of a number. But anyway, the main thing was, that's a decent amount of money. And I was saying to them, I'm going to build 2 factories. I'm going to patent more technology, and I'm going to bring 2 different concepts to market, which are very complex, very, very resource heavy, very CapEx high. But if we're successful, this is what the end picture will look like. And so, majority of those early investors were angels, but we did have 2 funds actually come in. Now I'm in my Series A, and it's a very different conversation. So, we've been in the market for 12 months. We've proven traction with Nourished. We've set up 2 factories that are fully functional. We have had 4 new patents go in, and 2 have already been granted. So now I can go back and say, you remember when I told you I was going to do X? Well, I've done that now. And what we want to do next is this, and I just need money to grow it. And it's a very different conversation. And in a lot of ways, it's easier. Even though the amount of money that you're asking for is more, the actual conversation is much easier because they can see a track record, a recent track record in the field that you're executing, where there's a certain level of risk taken out, I think. And that's why.
Yeah. So aside from just delivering the results, tell me a bit about what it took to manage the stakeholders in the right way that you are then comfortable enough to go to them and say, look, this is stage 2 and we want you involved.
I take my stakeholder reporting quite seriously. I'm an investor in my own right. And so I know how I feel when I don't get information on a regular basis. It's not very nice, especially when you've put a lot of your hard-earned money into something. And that's really more from an angel perspective. I'm not a fund. I think it's a little bit different. But I think one of the things I find about good reporting is that it's not only good for your communication with your stakeholders, which keeps them really up to date on what's going on in your business, helps them cheer you on, helps them support you when you need help, and it helps them see where they can help you without you having to constantly ask, which I think is also really nice. But in addition to that, I think it keeps us honest on the other side, on the operational side. So I report to my stakeholders on a weekly basis with a dashboard of metrics and a few highlights and headlines. It's not a long email, but it's like every single week, it keeps me checking in on these key metrics. It keeps all my heads of department checking in on these key metrics. And it keeps everyone very focused on what's important in a business which is rapidly growing, which has gone from 4 people to 70 people in a year, which is really, really, could lose its focus at any moment. And I think that those types of reporting structures and communication structures are good for both the receiver and also the compiler, I think.
Mm. And you mentioned part of that journey is just getting the patents in order as well and making sure that you've got the right ones in place. So for those less familiar with it, what does that process look like? How do you decide where you need the patent and how do you go about securing it?
So I think anyone who thinks they might have a technology which is unique and novel should basically ask for either a general search or a consult from a good patent attorney, because otherwise I think you can make a lot of mistakes, expensive mistakes. So to get a idea checked, it's not that expensive. It depends on where you're going, if you're going to European or if you're going to UK, but it's between 600 to 750 pounds to check and do like a prior art search. This is done by usually an attorney who used to be a patent examiner, and they will tell you, this looks really unique actually, or it looks good. However, there possibly could be a challenge from these people. If you just make one change, you should probably be able to get it through and so on. And I mean, I think we have now 12 patents, and they are extremely powerful from a deterrent from competition, a defensibility moat. They have value in their own right. There's licensing potential. And I think it's worth checking that for 500 to 750 pounds, it's worth checking it. But I think, do your own research. Go on Google, see if you can find anything that's similar. If you can, it's probably not protectable. But if you can't, then give it a try. See, it's not going to cost you more than that just to check it. If you go ahead and proceed with the full application, depending again on how far you want your protection to be scoping to, it's between 5,000 and 10,000 pounds. But if you are getting funding from investors and you say to them, we need 10,000 pounds to get a patented IP that will protect our business model from competition, I think you would not find many of them saying no.
Absolutely. And part of this growth story then, and as you mentioned, is really building up the team and doing that quite rapidly. So what have the learnings been with that? Any mistakes you would avoid in the future, and what's your advice?
Yeah, I think we've been very lucky because we have extremely good people within the business that have helped to maintain the incredible culture that we have. And in a way, they do my job for me a lot of the time. So, they all care equally about this business's success. All of my team are shareholders in the company. Everyone who passes probation receives EMI shares. So everyone has an invested interest in the success of the company. And if someone comes into the business, which is very rare, and doesn't commit at the same level and is what we would consider to be a weak link, I don't even have to say it. The rest of the team get really annoyed. And so I think that's really helped me a lot, because I think that saves me a lot of micromanagement. I think also because we're based in Birmingham, we are really able to get access to huge amounts of talent. So in the Midlands, we have 5 universities within 10 miles of our office that have 3D printing degree programs, which is really unique, like in the world. And then, in comparison to somewhere like London, in Birmingham, we're one of the coolest tech companies in the entire area, in the Midlands in general. So if people are living in this area and they're interested in that kind of a business, we really stand out as like one of the best places to go and develop your career. In London, I'm not sure if that would be the same. I think there's a lot more competition. I'd be hiring against people like Google and Facebook, and it just might be a little bit different. And we've just found to be able to find incredible people. Yeah, and I do feel like I got a little bit lucky. We have like a 94% success rate on new hires, which is very high, which is not normal. Yeah,
that's incredible. And how's your role changed in all of this? So from the sort of early days of the business to today, what's that been like?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. My role is ever evolving. I certainly still play an active part in a lot of the parts of the business, which over time I feel like I won't get to do very much anymore, which is kind of sad because I really enjoy them. So the MPD and the R&D side of the business is really my favorite part. But we have great teams doing that now, and I'm still able to give top line directives. I think one of the biggest things is being able to create a very strong structure of management underneath me, directly underneath me, that can help me to run the ever-growing team. It's totally impossible for me to manage 70 people. It's totally insane. It's not feasible for anyone to do that. And so really finding great people to do my heads of, every department has a heads of, and those heads ofs are responsible for running their individual teams. So of course I know everyone, but a year and a half ago, we all sat in one room together. There's 4 of us. So it's really nuts now. We're getting our 3rd factory right now. And yeah, I mean, in the building today, there's 50 people. I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, rapid growth. So what are the goals for the business over the next 12 months or so?
Well, we are working towards a couple of different things. So we're hoping that we can close out our Series A by the end of this quarter. And with that cash, we're going to be rapidly accelerating our growth in the United States. And we're also launching our Nourish Kids range. So that will be basically the world's first personalized vitamin range for children. And I think that's going to go down very well. It's definitely needed in that marketplace. And then we are also working on launching Nourish Protein, which will be personalized protein bars that will come out in Q3/4 of the same year. On the other side of the business in scripted, we're working with a major pharma partner and also a very large clinical trial organization to implement activations for the use of our 3D technology to personalize curative health solutions. That's not live yet. It takes a little bit longer, not a little bit, it takes a lot longer to pass through the regulatory pathways. But in the long term, I think it could have a massive positive effect on global health. And it means a lot to me to be able to be involved in that.
So a number of things going on. So a lot of moving parts in the business. So one, just to touch on that, you mentioned that you're looking to launch the business in the US as well. What are some of the challenges of that, and what should people look out for if they're looking to do the same?
I think it very much depends on the type of business that you have. So our model is a D2C personalized product model, and we happen to make the only personalized gummy vitamin in the world. And in America, the most popular kind of vitamin for 35 and youngers is gummy. And so it's a really natural, extremely good fit. You could even argue that it's a better fit market than the UK, which is our home market, because the consumers are much less cost sensitive and much more keen on gummy vitamins. That market is way more developed over there. And so I think for us, it makes tons of sense. But I think for anybody looking at approaching it, again, the internet and this age that we live in now is so amazing that you can do so much research that you could never do before. And I think you need to go and see who's going to be your competition. What are the current rates of acquisition people are paying to get the customer you're trying to get? Are you able to translate your product directly to America, or do you need to do some work on that? So I happen to be an American living in the UK, so I'm very confident that our product in its current state will appeal both to the UK and the US. But I've seen many times European brands just try and throw a product in the American market, and just the verbology on the packaging is so weird, and you just think, oh, nobody thought that one through. And it just makes it a very difficult sell at the very beginning. The product doesn't get its, I guess, day in the sun. But then I also think, you should also be thinking about, maybe, is it best to be able to work with a partner there? Is it best to work with a distributor? Are you selling a service? Is it super, super simple from a business contractual point of view to do it? What are the tax implications? I mean, there's so many different things. But I think from our side, it was a natural fit. We did some market research. We did a study on 2,000 people in America. We showed them Nourished. We asked them whether they would buy it with the price known and all these things. And we got some really good data that gave us not 100% confidence, but a decent level before we went out and decided that we would start selling in that market.
Perfect. And just to finish off then, so where can people learn more about both yourself and the company?
Sure. So the best place to do that would be our website, get-nourished.com, or just type in personalized vitamins into Google and it'll come up first.